July 19th, 2011. A warm summer's day with a slight breeze in the air, not a cloud in sight. Two girls, best of friends, restless in the warmer summer heat, wonder how best to spend their time together. Living close to Musselman's Lake, Ontario, the two girls decide to go out onto the lake in a small blown-up family dinghy. The water's so cool and the breeze blows freely in the open air as the sun beats down. The two paddle across the lake. The dinghy sways from side to side as the two best friends joked and laughed. Suddenly, a wave from a passing boat upends one side of the dinghy. One of the friends loses her grip and falls into the water. She kicks and screams as she doesn't know how to swim. Her friend, a proficient swimmer, jumps in after her friend, who struggles to remain afloat, taking water in. Fearful for her life, she grabs hold of her friend, pulling her down with her. Her friend tries desperately to paddle the both of them back to the dinghy, but it's no use. The weight of her friend holding her down is too great as the dinghy floats further and further adrift. The two best friends fall deeper under the water. This is the story of Sabrina Alibai, who jumped in to save her best friend Gift DG. Both the young girls never made it out alive of Musselman's Lake that warm summer's afternoon, a tragedy that shocked everyone who heard about it. A young successful member of the Shia Ithnashri community who touched the lives of all of those around her had passed away in the most tragic circumstances. But this isn't just a tale of heroism turned tragedy. Yes, her final act was to save her best friend, but the story doesn't quite end here.
Sabrina was a lovely girl. She was always smiling. She was a very good friend of my daughter's. My daughter and her got along extremely well. When we would go to family gatherings, the first thing my daughter would ask is, will Sabrina be there? She was outgoing and always smiling. The thing I remember most about her is her smile.
Whenever I went over to her house, she just had this big smile on her face, and she'd come running and give me a hug.
She's always so lively, she's full of life, she's always happy, she's always laughing, and if I was supposed to remember Sabrina now, she would be having a smile on her face. Like, it's fixated on her face, she's always smiling.
Like, I think anyone who would meet her the first time would just fall in love with her. That is how she was, yeah.
Her thoughtfulness, her compassion, her care, and her love for everyone around her. She, be it a child, a teenager, an adult, or a senior, she would be the same with everyone. And through her kindness, she earned her respect from everybody.
Sabrina was energetic, full of life, happy, naughty, but absolutely wonderful.
We did a lot of things together. I used to help her with her projects from school. We would, just go shopping together. We would go for movies. If her mom, she wanted to go with her friends, and her mom would be like, no, you're not going with your friends. And she'd be like, oh, can we go for this movie together? Or, can you take me shopping? Or, yeah, so we did, a lot of, stuff that friends do. I was just her grown-up version of a friend, right? So if she wanted a perspective, a grown-up's perspective on something, she'd always ask me, what do you think of this? Or
she had an interest in learning different things, learning about different people, and she was very focused in her studies, and she used to enjoy studying different things. At the same time, she was an amazing person with a big heart and a beautiful personality. It was great just being around her.
I met my sister a couple of weeks ago from Mombasa, and she was saying to me that I had sent Sabrina for 3 weeks to them in 2005 when Sabrina was only 10 years old. She said we were so impressed with her loving nature. She just wanted everybody around her to be happy. And she said even if that meant to give up her own comfort, she would still do that.
At the tender age of 16, Sabrina's time had come. A shock felt throughout the community, the world over, for something so sudden, so tragic, so untimely. No one could quite believe it. How does one fathom receiving such news? How does a parent learn that their only child has passed away so suddenly?
You know, we know that death is imminent upon young or old. However, when such an event touches you, especially with the death of a young child, especially if this was your only child, it's very difficult to understand Allah's mercy. And my parents brought her up, so they were very close to her as well. I was the last person to find out about this, so my dad picked me up from my home and brought me to theirs, and there were so many people around, and each one said, "You break the news to her," news that I wasn't even aware of. And then my dad just stood up very courageously, confidently, and he came up to me and he said, "Allah loves us all, and Allah loves you, and He does not want to put His creation through hardships." So he said, "What I'm going to tell you next is very heartbreaking. However, Allah has willed it in His mercy for a purpose." And then he broke the news to me. At that point, we all broke down, obviously. But after that, I thought about what my dad had said. And it changed my mindset, and it changed how I felt, because these news were specifically devastating for all of us. Yet my dad's first reaction was to remind me of how much Allah loved us.
So I was in Africa when I heard about Sabrina's passing away, and I just rushed back for her funeral, and I got here luckily in time for the funeral, just before she was buried. And I didn't tell Sajida about it. Obviously, I hadn't even spoken to her before I left. I just knew that I had to get here and be there for her.
Our family and friends were devastated. Even people who didn't know her were devastated. Sabrina initially went to a Catholic high school, so her friends started writing on her Facebook page, asking her to come back. It wasn't time for you to go. So from the very beginning, I had to put a strong face up for her distraught friends and for my parents. Of course, myself and my parents believe in Allah's mercy, but the fact of not having her by our side intensely hurt our feelings. And I know that my daughter is with my most merciful Lord, who looks after her 70 times better than I could ever have. And so what I didn't want to happen was to see her distraught friends being so away with this loss.
Everyone, obviously, her family came from all over, everywhere, and everyone had to go back to their own lives after a few days, right? Everyone has their own families, their own lives to go back to, and I was just glad that, I wasn't working at the time. I was able to spend that time with Sajida and with her parents at that time. And so I just, spent that time with her right after Sabrina passed away, and it was Ramadan soon afterwards, so, we went to mosque together every day, and we just try to keep busy just to, sort of get Sajida to not think about it a lot. And she was actually, like I told you, she was really strong, throughout the whole experience. I think she gave me strength more than the other way around. I feel like I got strength from her because she was so composed and so strong during the whole process. So,
you see, we are brought into this transient world to handle trials and tribulations. In a cosmic world, we could say our lives are half a second or shorter. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes plans for our benefit. We have to submit to Him, and His strength will carry us. Let's take examples of the chosen ones by the Almighty. Let's look at Prophet Muhammad. He cried when his son passed away. Let's take examples of the chosen ones. When we look at Prophet Muhammad, he cried at the loss of his son. Let's look at Prophet Yunus. He cried until his eyes became white, and he knew that his son Yusuf was still alive. When we see Karbala, we see that Ali Akbar turned to Imam Hussein and said, "Patience is your virtue." And Imam Hussein replied, "If you were a father, the emotions you would feel are unsurpassable." So we can see that even with the chosen ones who have accepted Allah's mercy, they still go through these emotions and feelings. And that is how I feel that grieving is required and very important.
Grieving is without a doubt a natural process after the loss of a loved one. Many studies have been carried out looking at the various psychological layers that are attached when a loved one passes away. It is without a doubt one of the most difficult periods in one's life, particularly when it's one's own child. Couple that with the abrupt nature of Sabrina's passing, and such grief remains almost unimaginable. How does one cope or try to understand such a situation? Fatima Mauji, a social service worker by profession, has often dealt with such issues of bereavement and the loss of loved ones in her profession.
The process of bereavement is a lifelong process. There is no manual to grief. The goal of the mourning period of an individual who has suffered the loss of a loved one is, in fact, the intensity of which that person continues to remember that individual. So it may be 10 years that have passed, but when somebody mentions that individual's name, how long is that intensity piece? How long does it last? Many people do find it difficult coming to terms with the passing of a young one. Especially in our society, as parents, they think that they will never outlive their children.
As the resident alim, Sayyid Muhammad Rizvi often deals with such cases. Through his seminary education, he offers the scholarly opinion on death and bereavement.
Death is a concept which is very unique. You talk about any issue, you will see two views on it. You talk about God, there are those who believe and those who don't believe. You talk about the Prophet, there are some who accept him, some who don't. You talk about the Quran, there are some who accept it as a revelation, others who don't. But the reality of death is a true reality. There is no difference of opinion on that. It's a phenomenon which doesn't even have any rules and regulations as far as a human perspective is concerned. Nobody can come and tell us that this is what you should look for, because the death comes, it can come anywhere. It can come in any state to a person. When we talk about the different kinds of death, like accidental death versus what is known as normal death, it becomes very difficult to define it. But what we can say is that when a person lives what is known to be the normal lifespan and then dies, we say this was a normal death. We accept it without any questions about it. But if a person dies before fulfilling his or her normal lifespan, that's where we say this is accidental or a sudden death, and that's where people start questioning.
With Sabrina's passing deemed a tragic accidental death, we wanted to know what the Ahlul Bayt have said about such instances.
The phenomenon of sudden death or accidental death, which are not considered to be normal death, there are two ways of explaining them. Number one, a negative one. It could be because of the actions of the individual himself or herself, committing certain sins, which can shorten the lifespan. But then there is a positive element also, that sometimes it's nothing to do with the person who died very young or all of a sudden or in an accidental death. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala uses these incidents of death as an expression of His absolute power over the universe, especially over the life and death of a human being. And since we as human beings don't have the capacity to know why this person died early or through accidental death, we don't have any right to make a judgment about it. It is one of those phenomena of Allah's power. He is showing us that I have created you, and it's my prerogative how long you will live and how you will die, where you will die.
What actions impact the length of a person's life?
A phenomenon which can shorten the life of a person is qita'ur rahim. Qita'ur rahim means cutting off the ties of relationship with those who are related to you. Islam gives great emphasis to what is known as silatul rahim, to maintain the ties with those who are related, and the opposite of is qita'ur rahim. In silatul rahim, the ahadith say a person's life can be prolonged. It depends on the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And in qita'ur rahim, we are told that it could be reduced. Number two is the sin of lying, especially those who get into habitual lying. Third is the issue of illicit relationship, adultery or fornication. And the last one I would say from the hadith is causing distress to one's parents. This is known as uququl walidain, and that can be one of the reasons for shortening of the lifespan.
There are various stages to grief and bereavement. Not everyone experiences each of these steps. However, there are some that are most common. What are they, and what should we look out for when going through this process?
The first stage of grief is denial, and also shock is another example of a stage of grief. And that is basically your natural reaction to your body. Common responses would be not to believe what has happened. And in order for you to comprehend what has actually fathomed, your body does go into denial because it cannot comprehend the overwhelming feelings and sorrows. So it is a protection against one's body and oneself. The second stage of grief is anger. Anger provides a practical outlet. So when you are going through when an individual is going through the stage of anger, just before the stage of denial, there is a loss of control. There is no sense of control. So when an individual follows into the stage of anger, it brings back a sense of control to them. And anger is not an unhealthy emotion that a lot of people may think. It is a very healthy emotion that allows our body to understand and to go through the process of healing. The next stage of grief is called the bargaining. So this is a period in which the individual goes through a negotiation. So it is similar as anger. It provides the individual with a sense of control, and that a lot of feelings that are associated with anger follow through in bargaining as well. There may be some guilt that is involved, that how did they outlive the person? There might be a negotiation with God or a higher being that why this person had to die. Depression is also a stage of grief that is associated with bargaining, and in that stage of depression, you are exhausted from all the overwhelming emotions that you face. And this is a very tricky stage that an individual can face. Thoughts of suicide may take place, and therefore putting as many supports in place right from the beginning for the individual is very, very crucial. They may need to seek professional help. Just speaking to a grief counselor one-on-one and making that phone call to speak to somebody may be needed at that time. The next stage that is involved is called acceptance. So this stage, after going through the anger, the guilt, perhaps shame, all those overwhelming emotions, acceptance is the most slowest and painful form that your body takes. It lets you know that it helps you come to the realization that you have to face life without this person. You have to carry on. And so dealing with that and making new goals for yourself without that person who is not in your life anymore becomes bearable and is not as intense as the other emotions of denial and anger and bargaining.
Life is so precious. Reflecting on the process of bereavement highlights just how precious it is. The fact that the loss of a loved one can last a lifetime just shows how valuable we are. It is in this value that one can reflect and see how Allah has created this life as a means for us to develop through the various trials and challenges we face. It is upon us to take a lesson from these various instances.
I think there are a lot of challenges in life, and challenges can do two things to a person. They can either make a person or they can break a person. As the way you perceive it and the way you act upon it. I think with this challenge, it has taught me that you need to take these circumstances in life and make it into a stepping stone where people can step on it and actually grow from that challenge.
There are no guarantees, you know, like there's a lot of plans that we make in life, but there is no guarantee that you will be able to, you know, follow through with those things because we don't know how much time we have. Only Allah knows that, right? So like you know, obviously we plan and He plans and He is the best planner, and we just have to, I think that is what we need to keep in mind at all times, and it's so easy to sort of lose track of that and, you know, forget that.
When we first heard about the tragedy, Sabrina's death, we were all very taken aback because no one saw it coming, you know, and Allah tests everyone in different ways. So what we learned from this tragedy is that Allah is the one who is the best of planners, and He has a grand scheme that is good for people, though we do not realize it sometimes.
It's impacted me tremendously. As I had said, Aliyah, my daughter, was a very good friend of Sabrina's. She felt quite close to her. At family gatherings, we were together. And in seeing the reaction of my daughter, when Sabrina passed away, it was heart-wrenching. And to see, you know, a young, beautiful girl where life is so fragile in so many ways pass away, and how it impacted my family, including my children, and us. We knew her. We were close to her. She was a special girl.
It's just made me realize that life is short, and we just never know when it will be our last breath, you know, and we should just make the most of every moment that we are here in this world and, you know, make it count. And Sabrina did that in such a short time. She was, you know, only not even 16 when she passed away, and she made like such an impact on everyone in such a short time that she was here. And I think that is what I've learned from this, that, you know, it's extremely important to make the most of whatever little time that you have here.
It's taught me that, you know, we've got to stay humble. We've got to be respectful, be kind, and be good, and think about how we can be caring and just and helpful to others, because how you live here, that leaves a legacy in the hereafter for you. And she left a great legacy, as young as she was.
This tragedy actually has given strength to a lot of people. The outcome of this has given strength to a lot of people to do good. Her memory and her, just who she was, her personality has channeled people's grief or their loss in different ways, and right now they have a hospital open in her name. I've learned that through hard times we can actually have something beautiful come out of it, and that's what it has taught me.
Sabrina was a loving girl full of life. So genuine she was. Whoever knew her wanted to be around her. In the short space of time that she lived, she touched the hearts of so many. Her selflessness and willingness to save her friend moved everyone who heard her story. To pass away in such circumstances, so suddenly, so tragically, had never happened before in the community. People were so moved, so restless, they knew it wouldn't be enough to just remember her and her selflessness.
After Sabrina passed away, it was a year, I remember so precisely, it was a year after. And, I was talking to Sajida and she was telling me how she had a get-together of girls. And I said to her, Sajida, I really, you know what, I feel that when a young life is lost, it is our duty as a community to make that life live, to celebrate that life. And, I feel that, just like I would want my girls to outlive me, I wanted Sabrina to outlive us. I wanted her to outlive my children, my grandchildren. So in order to do that, I felt like if we do an event, or if we create something by which we can help others, as well as keep Sabrina's memory alive, that would be the ideal thing to do. So I kind of suggested that to Sajida. I said, what if we do like a sports tournament? What if we do something by which we can engage the youth so we all remember Sabrina, and then we take that energy, because when Sabrina passed away, it sends shockwaves into the community, Everybody was affected. Everybody was like really upset and shocked. But then as time went by, after a year, you would do a memorial, you would do a majlis, you walk away, right? And I felt that, that's fine for a 60-year-old, an older person dies, because they've lived their life. But this life was cut off, so it was our duty. I felt as a community, we need to do something.
At the time that this tragic accident took place, I was in Zanzibar, and when I came back, I talked to Sajida at length. She told me that she wanted to do something meaningful and something permanent for Swabe Jariya. I suggested that we looked at these wards that were coming up, were falling apart, and I suggested that we renovate the children's wards.
At that time, there was that hesitation, like, how are we going to raise the money? How are we going to do this, right? And I remember at that time I said to Sajida, you know what? I'm not good with raising money. I'm not good with asking for money. But for this cause, I feel so strongly we'll be able to raise the money. So we set our target to $2,000. Okay, $2,000, we can help renovate one ward perhaps, right? So we started with that. And in January of 2013, so I drafted an email, just an email. I remember January 26, 2013. Email went out. And I'm telling you, it was just incredible. I mean, the response that came was just incredible. We were just hesitant that, we won't even raise $2,000. And here we had over $15,000 within a month. Like people were sending checks from everywhere, all around the world. We had people taking those, the email, changing it, sending it to their, colleagues in the offices. We had Jewish people donating. We had all kinds of people donating. The local people. I remember one person sent that email to the hospital where she works. And this doctor sent money. He said, I heard of that accident. I know this accident happened. I'll do anything I can do to help. So it was incredible, the money that was raised, and it just really, made us feel that, yes, there's altruism that exists in this community. And it was just incredibly amazing.
I received the flyer, and I just sent an email out to people at work saying that this initiative is going on. It's for a great cause, and that's all it took. And the money started flowing in, and it took very little effort for me. And next thing you know, within a couple of days, I raised $1,000.
Sajida did most of the fundraising herself, but we did help through the Nutba group, and privately through emails we were able to not only raise funds for one ward, we actually raise funds for 2 wards.
Our aim was to renovate, provide medicine and equipment for children's wards in Kivunge Hospital in Zanzibar, Tanzania. The cost would be $5,000. So back in Toronto, we picked Sabrina's favorite game, Scrabble. On February 2013, we had her first Scrabble tournament.
With her friends, family, and wider community all inspired by Sabrina, the wheels for her initiative were now well in motion. Thousands of dollars had been collected. No one could quite imagine how quickly the initiative picked up off the ground. With the Scrabble tournament organized and ready to go, everyone wanted to either participate or give to her cause in whichever way they could.
All the volunteers coming together, that enthusiasm, just everyone really enjoying being in that moment. It was so nice to see all the players so intent, finding the exact words and trying to use all their letters or looking at the board and calculating all their points. So just that intensity, as well as that everyone was so competitive, but they were having a great time at the same time. That was great to see that. I also enjoyed that sisterhood, that feeling of sisterhood that kind of binded everyone together at that event. A lot of people came to know new people, met new friends. So you kind of see this whole spring of new friendships.
The whole experience of being involved with the Sabrina's, Scrabble tournament, raising the money, and having the bake sale, it was just incredible. Really, really incredible. When we decided to have the bake sale, the idea came that maybe we should have a pre-bake sale so people order from before and they come pick it up, because we usually cater food and stuff like that. So when these senior ladies were approached and they were told, we'll give you the money for the material, and if you could just make us some stuff, that will help us raise money. None of these women, not even a single one, said, no, we'll take the money. Said, no, we'll do this, So everybody just kind of came together. We had the seniors cooking the food, we had the mothers, packing it up, getting it all ready, taking the orders. And then on top of that, we had the bake sale, which was basically the youth, I know my daughter, she made the Scrabble pieces and made into cookies, which says Sabrina Scrabble. There was another girl, she made cupcakes with the Scrabble tiles. So, Sabrina Scrabble kind of just took off. It kind of just went together so well. And everybody was involved. I mean, it was just incredible. Anybody who was coming was like, no, we'll donate. There was one woman, she said, I'll donate the lunches. Another person came, no, I'll donate all the, desserts or cakes or snacks, whatever you want. So nobody took any money. Everybody was just willing to donate. We all, everything came together. It was just incredible. I'm telling you, the feeling, it was just incredible. It was just an amazing, amazing feeling.
I also enjoyed the bake sale. Like, everyone came up with creative ideas. We saw young cooks, helping towards that cause. And I enjoyed just, taking videos of that whole event and kind of capturing these little precious moments that people try and find that's like a casual thing, but it's truly special.
The event was an extreme success, and I think even for the volunteers and the organizers, it was an overwhelming response that they didn't expect either. But it was such a great cause, and Sabrina was such a great girl that in her life and in her death, she's left such a memory for people that has really caused all of us to want to help and do something in her memory.
It kind of shows you how tragic events sometimes inspire people to come together, and it binds people to come together to take that tragedy and take the next level to it. So Sabrina Scrabble Tournament is basically this whole network of people coming together, making an event, and that event growing into something beautiful.
From one tragic event, thousands of lives have been affected, whether it's community tournaments bringing everyone together, to charity projects saving lives in her name. In her act of heroism, she was able to rally everyone to work together to better one another and to help the situations of those children most in need.
I have helped in different ways, so mostly as a volunteer, and I helped with some of the marketing. I helped with some of the videography at the event. I help with a bake sale as well. So we have a bake sale for Sabrina where people can go enjoy, buy any treats that they want to have after the tournament. And yeah, so I just help with volunteering, editing as well for anything that needs to be posted up on the Facebook wall or just letters in general. I help with editing as well sometimes. So whatever they need help with.
All activities would not have been possible without family, friends, team members, volunteers, donors, and everybody else who has helped so much in making sure that we go on in this manner. These are all angels sent from the Almighty, and may Allah reward them forever.
Tragedy has this effect. It brings people together. Like no other common emotion, it spurs people to collaborate and work alongside one another. In this case, we saw the entire community come together to assist the cause in whatever way they could. Whether it was their time organizing events, participating in the tournament, donating money, baking cakes, whatever it was, people got involved. As all funds were now collected, the much-needed work began at Kiwungge Hospital. The dire conditions were finally going to get the attention they needed.
The opening event happened on August 29th, 2013, last year. And our family gathered from everywhere. And coincidentally, Taira Jessa and Rehana Merali from Toronto were in Zanzibar as well. So that was very good for all of us. The opening was officiated by Honorable Deputy Minister of Health and the Honorable Secretary General.
Yes, I was at the opening ceremony of Sabrina's ward, and that was also by fluke. You know, we had a trip planned from before, and it just happened. We happened to be there in Zanzibar. I've never been to Dar es Salaam or Tanzania before. This was our first trip ever. And it just coincided with the opening, and we happened to be at the resort, which was only 20 minutes away as well. So I just felt so honored, you know, to be present at this opening. It was so grand. Because I had seen the pictures of that hospital before. You know, it was like really run down. And then to go into that hospital, and you know, I know there's this structure. If you may have seen in the pictures, there's a structure in the middle of the garden. And that's where it used to say Wajia Watoto, you know. And now it says Wajia Sabrina. And you know, the wards have been beautifully done. The windows have been replaced, you know, the new fans, you know, new mosquito nets. And you know, when the opening happened, there were already kids there who were being treated. So, you know, it was already, you know, Sabrina's name was already, you know, out there helping other children. So it was just an amazing, amazing experience. And, you know, I just wish that it will continue. I wish it would continue. It will continue, and I hope it will continue. And, you know, the desire or the hope, the wish that I have is that Sabrina's name outlives, you know, I kept saying to Sajida, it will outlive us, it will outlive our grandchildren, inshallah, you know, and our youths will take that, you know, take that name and take that life of a young child and help, you know, others in her name.
The opening ceremony was a day of realization, a day where everyone's hard work actualized what began as a dream that had become a reality and a hope for so many. One of the individuals integral on the ground was Nadine Butt, the project manager for Tanzania's Health Improvement Project.
Wageni waalikwa, wafanyakazi wa Kiwungge Hospitali, Assalamu alaikum. Ninaitwa Nadine Ott na mimi ni project manager mpya katika shirika la HIPS, Health Improvement Project Zanzibar. Tupo hapa kusherehekea ufunguzi wa wodi mpya za watoto kwa jina la wodi za Sabrina katika Kivunge hospitali. Tunamshukuru sana Sajida Virji toka Canada ambaye alimua kusaidia watoto wa Kivunge baada ya Sabrina binti yake alifariki dunia katika ajali ya kutisha miaka 2 iliyopita. Tunamshukuru Mama Sajida pamoja na watu mbalimbali kwa kuchangia ukarabati wa wodi za watoto. Tumeweka madirisha, milango, vitanda, makabati, mapazia, sinki, uchoraji picha na bustani. Na wodi sasa ina sehemu ya huduma ya mtapiamlo na sehemu ya kucheza watoto. Asante sana Mama Sajida. Ninapenda kumshukuru pia Fatma Alu kwa msaada wake, pamoja na wote waliochangia katika ujenzi wa wodi za watoto. Rehana Merali kwa kuwezesha ushirikiano, fundi Ame kwa kukarabati wodi, Nasor Omar kwa kuwasilisha baadhi ya vifaa, Jason Gatequad kwa kutengeneza bustani, Muhammad Amesheha kwa kusimamia shughuli zote, na Caitlin Farrow aliyekuwa meneja kabla ya mimi kwa kuendesha ujenzi wote. Ukarabati huu wa wodi za Sabrina umeisaidia HIPS. Tunafanya kazi pamoja kwa mashirikiano na wafanyakazi wa hospitali za Kivunge na Makunduchi kwa kuboresha majengo na kutumia mbinu mbalimbali. Na madaktari wa kujitolea wa HIPS wanajaribu kufundisha wafanyakazi kutoa huduma bora kwa wanajamii wa Zanzibar. Kwa hiyo, tuna furaha sana kwa msaada wote, Mama Sajida. Tunakuomba usitusahau. Karibu tena Kivunge. Asanteni sana na karibuni sana Kivunge.
With emotions running high, Sabrina's mom Sajida also spoke at the ceremony.
Mheshimiwa Naibu Waziri wa Afya, Dr. Sira Mamboya, Mheshimiwa Katibu Mkuu Dr. Jidawi na mzalishi mwenza wa HIPS, waheshimiwa masheha, mabibi, mabwana na watoto, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Kwanza, naomba mnisamehe kwa sababu Kiswahili changu si kizuri na pengine nitakosea hotuba hii. Ijapokuwa mimi nilizaliwa Tanzania bara, wazee wangu walizaliwa Unguja. Mimi niliondoka Tanzania miaka 20 mbele na sasa naishi Canada. Nyuma, mbele. Waswahili wanasema mtu kwao. Tunamshukuru Mwenyezi Mungu Subhanahu wa Ta'ala kutupa uwezo wa kuja hapa leo kuiona na kushuhudia kufunguliwa jengo hili la Sabrina's Ward. Na washukuru ndugu zangu Fatima, my brother Muhammad, pamoja na familia zao na wote waliokuja kutoka mbali na karibu kuwa nasi pamoja hapa Zanzibar katika shughuli hii ya leo. Vile vile tunamshukuru Tahera Jessa ambaye ametupa mawazo ya kuianza kazi hii na Rehana Merali
kuwezesha kazi hii. Tunawashukuru wote waliosaidia katika Kivunge Cottage Hospital. Na tumaini watoto wa Nungwi watapata faida ya utibabu katika jengo hili. Pamoja na furaha, nina huzuni ya mwanangu wa miaka 16, Sabrina, aliyopata ajali baharini Canada miaka 2 iliyopita. Popote Sabrina huenda, yeye akiwachangamsha wakubwa na vidogo kwa vichekesho na furaha. Kwa hivyo, kwa niaba ya Sabrina, tumejitahidi tuendelee kuwapa furaha watoto wa Nungwi. Tunaomba baraka na rehema ya Mwenyezi Mungu kwa wote waliosaidia kwa hali na mali na wote waliohudhuria hapa. Mheshimiwa Naibu Waziri na wageni wote wengine, asanteni sana kuhudhuria hapa leo kwa ufunguzi wa Sabrina's Ward. Napenda kuchukua nafasi hii kuwashukuru wafanyakazi wote walioshirikia kazi ya matengenezo ya hospitali hii. Miongoni mwa Caitlin ameondoka na nafasi yake imechukuliwa na Nadine. Pia nawashukuru mamangu mdogo Fatma Alu pamoja na Jason Gaikward, Nasser Omar, Ame Haji Faki, Muhammad Ame Sali, meneja wa kazi yote, na wafanyakazi wote wa hospitali ya Kivunge. Mwisho, naomba tumkumbuke marehemu Sabrina na vile vile marehemu wengine wote waliotangulia. Asanteni sana, walhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Suratul Fatiha.
The Honorable Deputy Minister of Health also attended the ceremony.
Nimeguswa sana na hichi kitendo kwa sababu nilipokuja nilijua tu tunafungua wodi za watoto, sikujua nyuma yake kulikuwa kuna nini. Lakini ninachokiona, naona tunatekeleza yale maamrisho ya Mwenyezi Mungu kwamba tuna binadamu anakuja na itafika siku ataondoka. Kwa hiyo hatuwezi kulaumu kwa hilo, lakini ukitaka kumuombea mema na kama kweli unampenda, fanya lile ambalo litafanya kukukumbusha, sio kwa kilio, isipokuwa kwa kumshukuru Mwenyezi Mungu na kumpa faraja na kumwombea maghfira na kupata thawabu yule aliyetangulia. Mama Najda amelifanya hilo kwa kuamua kujenga wodi ya watoto, kwa sababu yule ni mtoto wake. Kwa hiyo ameamua kulifanya hilo kwa watoto. Ameamua kulifanya hilo kwa watoto waliokuwa wagonjwa. Watafika katika wodi iliyoko hapa, wataingia akiwa wagonjwa, na ni mategemeo yetu watoke wakiwa wazima.
The children of Zanzibar have benefited greatly from these wards. Whenever I'm in Zanzibar, I make it a point to visit the wards, and I almost always meet new children, new mothers. They feel very confident because they are seen by British doctors who work there as volunteers. The wards are new, they are modern, they have new facilities, they have new equipment. So the mothers feel more confident about leaving their children there, something that they didn't feel before. I was visiting one of the wards one day, and I saw a little girl who had just fallen off a swing, and she had literally cracked her forehead. Without the ward, they wouldn't know where to go, and they would have taken her to town. It would have taken much, much longer, and it would have taken them a very long time to see a doctor. However, this accident took place about 20 minutes drive from the hospital, so she was rushed to the hospital. There was a doctor available. He stitched her up immediately, and she was in the ward for about a few days, and a few days later I saw her back in school.
With children now being treated in Sabrina's wards, a lesson of hope and inspiration had been enshrined, a lesson that everyone can take something from, where God's plan becomes so apparent, how one life can give life to so many.
I think Sabrina's memory is seen in apparent ways as well as subtle ways in just day-to-day life. She's remembered in the programs that we have, like Sabrina Scrabble Tournament, that's in her name. I think the people and the kids at Kivunge Hospital know Sabrina now, and her memory is living alive over there because they're getting this treatment and this help, in her name. So she's remembered in different ways. She's also remembered in the day-to-day living by her family members. Her family always remembers her and speaks about her. She's remembered through her friends, with the laughter that she shared with us, the little memories that we had. And we kind of remember her in the events that we have together or the activities that we did together. For example, she used to come home and recite Quran with my mom. And she was training for one of the duas, the Ramadan duas. And so till today, when you open the book at home, you kind of can see her name scribbled, on the side. Well, this is where she starts reciting, and all her marks that, all the pauses that she was going to have as she was reciting. So that still carries, so whenever we open the book, we kind of remember Sabrina as well. So she is remembered in different ways throughout and with different people.
So I would say I keep Sabrina's memory alive by just, keeping in touch, obviously, with Sajida, because, she is a friend and she will continue to be a friend. And even more now, I think we're even closer now after Sabrina passed away. And, so I always try and visit her and Sabrina's grandparents, Sajida's parents, whenever I can. And yeah, I've just become really close to them, even as a family. I go and spend time with them whenever I get a chance, and being involved in things like Sabrina's Scrabble tournament and things like that. Whenever I can, be a part of things like those, I do make it a point to be there.
You see, Sabrina returned to her creator at a very young age, but yet, perhaps unconsciously, she knew what to do while she lived on this earth. On June 17th, 2010, she posted this poem on her blog, and her poem was called Death, and I will read this poem to you. It's called Death. We can't run away from death. Once it's destined, it is our last breath. We never know when it's approaching, so continue encroaching. Make your last moments memorable for all, so when it occurs, no one will let it fall.